Hi, I'm Jerry Kroth, professor in California, and I have done a number of videos and books on academic subjects, on global warming, on psychic dreams, on propaganda, on UFOs. This is not about that, okay? This is a completely different thing that I'm doing today. So very short. I play trumpet, and I also play flugelhorn, and I'm kind of an aspiring musician. I have a big band, which has played at the San Jose Jazz Festival a couple times, but we're not ready for prime time, and we're, I would say, intermediate at best in our skill levels. But I had this great revelation about something artistic, which I want to share with you, which is what this very short video is about. Okay, quickly, a short history of jazz. We start in the 40s. There's the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra, the Glenn Miller Orchestra, and in the 1950s we get a cool dude named Miles Davis who brings modern jazz into a different era, progressive jazz, the birth of the cool. There's Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie, who are now forerunners of a new movement in music. Okay, Dave Brubeck meets Paul Desmond at San Francisco State in the 50s and starts a musical group that starts incorporating classical music into jazz. They play until, forever. And they played, I think Dave Brubeck just died a few years ago, and he played right until the end. So uh, here's the beginning of a seminal insight for me, and I'm wanting to communicate it to you. There was a baritone sax player named Jerry Mulligan, pretty famous. He was interviewed by Downbeat magazine, which is kind of like the primo jazz publication. And they asked him, I don't know when this was, 70s, 80s, what were the three most important groups to shape modern jazz? And he said one, and I forgot what that was. And then he said Dave Brubeck, because he brought classical music into jazz. And then he said himself, me. And they said, why would you say you were the third most important influence in jazz? And he said, because I got rid of the piano. The Jerry Mulligan Quartet was made up of a trumpet, baritone sax, bass, and drums. No piano. Huh. And that intrigued me because it alerted me to something about art, about jazz that is very important here. So I got rid of the piano means I made what was explicit implicit. Okay? What you heard was no longer what you heard. It had to be heard inside your head. It was more abstract. Now, there's a physicist named David Bohm in quantum physics who wrote about the implicate order, that there's an explicate order and an implicate order, and they're enfolded to make up a whole. That's quantum physics. I promise not to get too crazy here. All right. There's a trumpet player who actually wrote a song or made an album called The Implicate Order, meaning that jazz has something to do with what is not there, but which is felt. Okay? Guy got rid of the piano means I made the explicate order the implicate order. Now I'm going to demonstrate that on piano, and hopefully this will make some degree of sense. Okay, I want to demonstrate this and let you listen to this craziness. Sounds like a child playing, but if you put it together, you realize there's a jazz chord underneath that craziness, like this. But underneath that is that, a deeper structure underneath that apparently external craziness. Like a cat walking across the piano keyboard. But that's what's underneath it. By removing the piano, Jerry Mulligan forces us to become more conscious of the implicate order, the underlying structure that holds everything together. Miles Davis said, "It's not how many notes you play, it's how many notes you don't play." Okay, so that's the adventure. But I sort of knew that, but 3 weeks ago I had this quantum leap insight, which I want to explain to you now, with that just as an introduction. The story of Oliver Nelson, okay? Even young jazz musicians that I play with don't necessarily know who Oliver Nelson was. He got a master's degree in music. He played tenor sax, alto, flute, was a composer, wrote music for Hollywood. I went to Copenhagen in the mid-60s, and I saw the Radio Copenhagen Jazz Orchestra in this basement of a nightclub, and it was stunning. They played the whole evening. They played Oliver Nelson compositions, and that was the first time I heard this genius, and he really was a genius. Now, Oliver made quite a number of albums and wrote a few Hollywood TV shows, but his most famous album was The Blues and the Abstract Truth. And I never paid a great deal of attention to the concept of the abstract truth. All right, now I want to explore this, but the sad postscript here is that suddenly Oliver Nelson dies of a heart attack at the age of 43, right in the prime of his musical creativity. And so we lost Oliver Nelson, and he might have been a very, very great influence on jazz. Many of his songs are played by high school bands and sextets right now. All right, now we're getting to the point of this talk. So here's a song. Now, if YouTube does not allow me to show this video because of copyright issues, I've tried the best I can to get permission to quote these songs, but if it doesn't happen, you'll never see this video. Here's an excerpt from a song that was on that album called Yearnin', popular song, with Eric Dolphy's solo coming. Now listen to the... Now, listen to his harmonies as we get into the melody. Very tight, very unusual voicing. Okay, now I never liked this song for one reason. He has a soloist who comes along during this song and plays a solo, which I thought was, now this is not my professional opinion, my personal reaction. It was insane. It was crazy. It was nutty. It was unacceptable. Didn't like it. Okay, so the soloist I'm going to play for you is named Eric Dolphy. Okay, I've never bought a record of Eric Dolphy's. I never liked his music. And I always thought, why would Oliver Nelson have this guy play a solo? I learned why about 3 weeks ago. But for 40 years, I thought, no thanks. Here comes Eric Dolphy's solo. Get ready. I have to, now maybe some of you like that, but I thought, I don't like it. I don't know why. Mellow, groovy, Oliver Nelson had this guy play that solo on his thing. I just thought he wrecked the piece. Now, I had this epiphany 3 weeks ago, which is why I'm making this video. They play Oliver Nelson. Maybe 5, 7 songs that he's written have lasted over the test of time. So this is a composer in the Netherlands who has a big band. And he has written out the deep structure, the implicate order of Eric Dolphy's solo. And for the first time in my life, I heard it and I said, oh my God, this is not random at all. This is amazing. So this is an extremely difficult piece to play. These are saxophones playing everything that was in Eric Dolphy's head. Listen to the implicate order. Okay, so for the first time I said, oh my God, Eric Dolphy's solo there were so many missing notes. I just didn't catch it. When Eric Dolphy plays 5 notes, there are 45 notes that he didn't play, which those saxophones played. When he plays 8 notes, there are 72 notes that he didn't play, but those saxophones played it and made it explicit. When he played 15 notes, there were 112 notes that Eric Dolphy didn't play. Okay? So that is why I just said, oh my God. He's making that up in the moment. I thought it was grating and random, but this is what was going through his head. So, if you look at I learned this from art, I just didn't learn it in jazz. If you look at a Monet on your left, it's pleasing, it's sweet, it's soothing to the soul, you love it, it's pretty. You look at Picasso on the right, it's grating, it's dissonant, you don't like it initially. People who first saw Cubist art said it's schizoid, it's crazy, but then they started to learn that Picasso is pursuing an abstract truth. He's trying to show you many perspectives. He's changing space and time and perspective and forcing you to realize that there are different ways of seeing the same object in space and time. So, that's happening with Eric Dolphy. Only I just never realized it. It's based on real structure. It's deeply abstract. It's not schizoid, as I said for many years. It's not random. It just means I was too close-minded to open up and hear what that composer heard and which that composer wrote out in music. Okay, I discovered the implicate order. So we have to learn what Eric Dolphy is doing and admire genius and creativity that is involved in his abstract truth, because He's just playing a couple of the notes of the huge panorama of notes that he hears, which do make sense. So that was my great lesson. I thought I'd pass it on. Thank you very much for watching.